Chapter 9, Wheel of Dreams.
Remember, telekinesis is much more than just lifting or moving objects.
What does that mean?
Well, you can view it this way. Biokinesis is a form of telekinesis that influences the human body on a cellular level. Normally, it's quite dangerous to use telekinesis on waking humans. Yet, rooks do it all the time, so why do they get away with it?
I don't know. If I had to make a guess, I would say it has something to do with the scale.
That's right. They're applying it on a cellular, even molecular level, so it doesn't run the same risk of severe injury.
I never thought about using Psi in that fashion.
The question is whether you believe telekinesis can only be applied at that level to human bodies.
The way you're asking that implies the answer is no.
Correct. For instance, what if you ran your Psi through the molecules of that vase, then crushed them together or thrust them apart? What would happen?
That sounds like it could be horrifying with the right application.
All Psi can be frightening. I'm not advocating for you to destroy things. However, I am telling you that Psi can be applied much more precisely than what you're doing. Thinking about Psi on a macro level can be useful for learning to apply broad mental images to accomplish a task. However, more precise applications of Psi can accomplish things others don't expect, like knocking them unconscious by altering their body chemistry.
Espers can do that?
You could do that. You are a fairy queen. You're not bound by some of the same rules as others. And remember that many Espers are limited by what they think they know about Psi, or how they've been taught Psi works. They build a box and they stay inside it. You don't need to do that.
This is very true. Fairy Queen.
What is it?
I was just thinking of that man I met back in New Albion. Rory. The day we met, he was quoting this Earth poet and playwright. Specifically, he was quoting a play that involved a fairy queen, fairies being creatures from Earth's mythology. I haven't thought about it since then, but how did he know? They said he was a rook. Can other Espers see Psi too?
Bishops possess better sight than most, but a rook? I have my doubts. When I watched the recording of that incident, it was obvious he wasn't in his right mind. But it is strange that he knew your type and rank.
I wonder what happened to him. He was also at the vivarium that day. I got through to him at the last minute, but then I was attacked later and destroyed that place. I don't know if he got out.
I don't think I saw anything about that in Endgame's reports, but I can look again and see if I can find his fate. He may have escaped.
If you find anything, it would be nice to know. There at the end, I believe he was trying to help me.
Hey, we don't need to discuss this, Morgan.
No, it's alright. That was just a rough day. I've managed to push it away and not think about it for a while, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I can't avoid it forever. Lance abandoned what he was doing and came to me. He pulled me against his chest, one hand going to the back of my head, stroking my hair.
It was a traumatizing day. It will take some time for that to fade.
I shut my eyes and leaned against him. It's nowhere near as bad as it was at first. I don't dream about it anymore. Well, not as much.
I'm glad to hear that. The first nights were rough.
He pulled away, hand strained to my cheek.
Even so, it's fine to put some distance between yourself and that day. It's not about ignoring what happened so much as not forcing yourself to deal with the trauma before you're ready. I know very well about that subject.
In any case, this learning to use my Psi is at least partially to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. Do you think if I learned to dissolve someone's pants with my mind, it would be enough of a distraction for me to get away?
With the right person, it might. I would suggest going for all the clothes, though. No need to do things halfway.
I might end up seeing some things I don't want to see if I go that far.
A small price to pay for a peaceful escape.
I guess I can't argue with that. I love that he just leaned into the silliness. That was great.
To go back to our former topic while we finish up here, if you want to gain a more precise control of your psi, I know some exercises you can do.
Did you use them to learn this technique?
I used them to practice it. I got the idea for the technique from reading Endgame's training records about biokinesis. After, well, I merged. I was in terrible shape physically. I used the medical equipment available to repair as much damage as possible, then maintenance bots to construct rough prosthetics. My legs were badly infected. My arm as well, the one I still had, but I tried to save that one. At any rate, recovery time for those kinds of surgeries is quite long. Though I was originally a king rank, I was F-class. My abilities were abnormal from the start.
That's right, I forgot that he's an F-class king. Right.
Much about the current classifications is about what comes natural to an Esper, more than their real limitations and capabilities. In some ways, those classifications became a cage that keeps people from branching out and reaching their full potential, though that wasn't the original intent. I utilized the nanosystem to push my psi to higher limits, hoping to be able to speed up my healing process. As a result, I learned some unconventional techniques, you might say.
In my experience, unconventional situations require thinking outside the box.
I agree. I suppose without King's abilities and experiences, it might not have occurred to me. No one on the planet has ever known as much about Espers as King did. Does. I do. This still feels confusing to discuss sometimes.
It's okay. I know what you mean.
We'll table the practice for now, but I want you to continue thinking about what I said. You also can be capable of unconventional things if you don't limit yourself. But the elders will be here soon, so we'll need to continue later.
Despite that I had decided to stay with Lance for the foreseeable future, I still wanted to get a handle on my psi. Just in case. It's a good precaution. A contingency plan. His approach to training was practical and utilitarian, since it typically involved helping him do chores, but with my mind. Of course, it wasn't as simple as lifting a watering can or something mundane like that. Since most Espers struggled to control liquids, Lance had me trying to do that when watering the plants. No watering can, just water. That was new as of this morning. Beyond that, Lance was trying to get me used to the idea of doing multiple things with my psi at once. He said the biggest challenge most people face is learning to do 2 or 3 or more tasks at the same time. Before the lesson on ultra-precise and small-scale use of psi, he introduced the concept of formulating a planned set of events and giving those commands to my psi in advance. It wasn't like programming a set of tasks so much as a way to organize thoughts in advance so the tasks could be performed in a more automatic way, like walking or anything else you didn't need to think about as you did it. It was another one that was tricky to get the hang of. The biggest problem was losing control of the steps midway through and causing something unexpected to happen, like a broken terrarium, a dropped watering can, and so on. Fortunately, Lance was a very patient teacher, because I had a long way to go. We finished in the greenhouse, and with my training a little while later. Then had time for a quick brunch before the expected guests arrived. It was Vireo and his group again. Vireo had contacted Lance the night before to let him know they'd be returning now that the previous storm had passed, and they were ready to take another look at the site I had documented. Good to see you guys again.
We'll be heading over there then to meet up with the others after we leave here. It didn't feel right not letting you know we were in the area since you're right here anyway.
Do you know how long you'll be staying?
It's difficult to say. This is a preliminary evaluation for now. Just to look at everything and document what we can. To get a feel for what's over there, especially underground.
He grinned at me as he spoke.
Morgan's initial reports have been very helpful, but we need to take a look with our tools this time and a few more sets of eyes. The goal is to start a design plan for uncovering this place and learning about it. We're especially interested in that one carving you found in the small cave area.
Oh, the large one on the back wall?
That's the one. It looks a little familiar, but we want to confirm it ourselves since it was pretty badly eroded. That said, you're coming with us, yeah? I mean, of course, right?
I tried to keep the relief off my face because I hadn't been sure they'd ask me to join them, and I really wanted to go. Do I need to bring anything?
Bring those books of yours. We have all your information in our system, but might as well make sure you've got the originals with you. Besides, we might want to take them with us for our archive if you're okay with it.
Of course! I'll run in and get them. I was trying to stop myself from actually running so I looked less like a child going on a field trip. But that didn't work. I darted inside to grab the notebooks, both of which were handily in the living room. I also grabbed the wrap I usually wore since I hadn't put it on earlier. I was lucky I'd mostly recovered from the incident the other day. There was still some nasty bruising that hadn't healed up yet, but it was all hidden under my clothes, so there was no need to explain anything. Which was a relief. Some idiocy needed to be left to fade into memory and not aired in front of respected colleagues. I love it. I was still sore, but nowhere near as bad as I'd been the day after. Pulling the wrap over my head, I rejoined them outside. Lance and Vireo were still chatting with each other as they waited for me. Vireo clapped Lance on the shoulder and went to get in the car, motioning me after him. Are you going to be okay with me being gone the rest of the day?
Of course. I'll be working on my new piece while you're away. But I'd like it if you return for dinner at least.
I'll definitely return for dinner. I leaned up to kiss his cheek before darting after the others. Ooh, love it! Clutching my notebooks to my chest. My face was warm, but I didn't look back to see his reaction until I had reached where the others were. Lance was standing there smiling, lifting his hand to wave as we left. My heart. So cute. And she's got her bun on. Let's go. At the location, we jumped straight in. The others were comparing my notes with what was out in the primary area, while Vireo, Eden, and I made a stop in the cave first to look at the carving I'd found.
It really is almost worn away, isn't it? I can see why you missed it the first couple of times in here.
But it's the same, isn't it? At least the parts you can make out.
That means we can expect to find a bigger one in the structure itself.
So you've seen this image before, then? Something important?
We found...
Hey, Vir! Come out here for a second!
I'm going to go see what they need. Eden, I want some high-resolution images of this. Light it up and get every square centimeter.
I'll take care of it.
Vireo left the two of us there as he went to find whoever had been calling him. Eden backtracked to two large bags he'd brought with him, one with several lights he began to set up.
Sorry, it's always chaotic like this when we're just setting up.
It's fine. I don't mind it at all. It's great, actually. I've spent enough time here by myself. It's great for the entire team to be here. I watched him setting up the lights, wanting to help but figuring I'd get in the way. So what is this carving? I've never seen it before.
So this image here, we call it the Wheel of Dreams. We've seen it in a few other structures on both sides of the planet. Usually combined with a few other specific images. We'll need to look around and see if we can find them.
Any idea what the significance was to the Seneccans?
We think they worshipped a deity of some kind, one that could influence their thoughts and dreams. Are you familiar with any Earth pantheons? They're kind of our only point of reference for what we find out here.
Some of them. We studied them in school. I had an entire semester on mythology from a place called the Hellenic Republic.
Perfect! Then you know the Oniri.
Personifications of dreams, right? Morpheus, Phantasos, and...
Phobator. Morpheus was the most famous of them, though. And we think they had a similar deity. At least, that's our interpretation of the murals. He's found anywhere we see this motif, often positioned very close by.
He stood and dusted off his legs before retrieving the camera. Eden took several images of the entire wall before moving closer to get many very close-up images. I observed the way he held the camera steady to get the shots. For several minutes he was focused on that. After a moment, he glanced my way, smiling sheepishly.
Probably seems weird to you that we still use things like this instead of just using our nanosystems like you can.
No, not really. We still use cameras too, you know. The nanosystem's resolution isn't always as good as what we need, and we can't zoom in or anything like that. We don't use it for everything.
I see. I guess it feels like you might see how we do things as old-fashioned or strange.
I was out here with a sketchbook and a pencil drawing things. It doesn't get much more old-fashioned.
I guess that's true. I just always imagined dome life as extremely high-tech, and we're out here in the dirt with cameras.
He looked at me again, holding the camera out.
Want me to, show you how to work it? Or do you already know? I shouldn't assume you don't know. Sorry.
I've never seen that exact model. I'd love to learn. He handed it to me, lifting the strap from around his neck. I moved closer so I could get a better shot at the image. Taking me by the shoulders, he positioned me in front of him so he could show me how to hold it and keep it steady.
A lot of the process is automatic. This grid will let you target a new section with each photo so you can be sure you capture everything and don't miss spots. Normally we would use a tripod, but there's not much space to set up here.
So are the other finds with this imagery less eroded than this one?
One of them is well preserved, but the other big one is missing half. We see a lot of smaller versions too, but it's a pretty detailed image, so the small ones are missing a lot.
There's a theory that Senecans worship the Arayans as deities. What do you think of that one?
Well, it's almost certain that the Senecans had some kind of contact with the Rayans. It is anyone's guess what that contact looked like or what they thought of it. So far I've seen nothing that makes me believe they viewed Arayans as gods.
I suspect you're right. I know some of the reason theories like that start up. It's easy for eager researchers to see a symbol and conclude it's a spacecraft or high-tech weapon. Once you go down that path, it's a short leap to something like a dream god that might have been an Arayan with psionic abilities. But without knowing the language, we should be careful about the conclusions we draw.
I completely agree with you.
I'm glad we're on the same page. I also have seen no compelling evidence the Senecans revered Arayans in a religious way, though I haven't seen evidence to say they didn't either. It's always been strange to me there's been little discovered that solidifies what sort of relationship they had with them, if any. I think the ideographic nature of the Senecan languages encourages speculation sometimes.
That's my belief as well. I know people are eager to make a connection.
It doesn't mean we should draw connections that aren't there.
Looks like you're with us on this one. This is one area where everyone in our group agrees. You know, we think Senecan culture on Arcalis predates the tidal locking of the world by the Arayans.
To be honest, I'm probably behind on a lot of the Arcalian Senecan theories. My focus was DNN Senecan culture. But I know there are remnants of structures in places here that wouldn't support life, so it's hard to imagine how they'd get there otherwise.
Not just that, though. We find references to both the moon and stars on ruins all across this side of the planet, while finding references to the sun on the other side of the sea as well.
I didn't know about that since the limitations on studying Senecan culture here means we don't get all the information about Nomos discoveries. But that could also be explained away by travel and oral stories.
But we found murals depicting a slow decline of some of the Senecan people on this side of the planet, worsening droughts, lengthening days. You can see how in earlier murals, the sun is depicted much higher, and it gradually drops to the horizon and stays there. The climate change altered Senecan culture on this world forever.
I'd love to see those, or well, the text on them anyway. That's amazing. The idea of a race with a technological advancement to change a planet's orbit is terrifying on its own. Even more so when you realize a race that advanced had to know there was a culture living here when they did it.
There's so much we still don't know about either race. For instance, did Senecans originate here or on Dione? And when were they moved? And why?
If Senecans experienced a decline because of the slowing of the planet's orbit, I suppose they must have moved closer to the sea as more and more areas became less hospitable.
That's what we think. A new journal came out regarding the Senecan calendar, and if we understand it right, the decline would have happened over a period of 500 years. That's a long time, but still pretty fast in the grand scheme of things.
Do you want to check the pictures I've done?
Sure.
He took the camera back from me, going through the images one by one.
This one is a little blurry. Let's see. From D4 on the grid. Watch, if you brace your arm like this, you can hold the camera steadier in instances where you can't use a tripod.
Ah, I get it now.
See the difference?
Ugh. Yeah, I didn't realize mine was that bad.
No worries. It comes with practice. That's the last one from this inscription. Let's get snapshots of everything else, though.
Sure. So I noticed there are a lot more people with you today than last time.
Last time was just a brief side trip. This is a research trip, so we brought everyone.
Are you all from the same city, or...?
We're from all over. Oh! Last time you seemed interested in Erebos. You should talk to Finch. He's from there.
Which one is he?
Tall guy, red hair. You'll spot him right away when you go out to the main area.
Then I'll say hi. Erebos. That meant he was a biosynth. I shouldn't be surprised there were biosynths among the Nomos if they frequently left Erebos anyway. I wasn't expecting to meet one here, but it was fascinating nonetheless.
He'll be glad to meet you. He's in charge of all our record keeping and was impressed with your reports.
Well, I do enjoy talking to people who are impressed with me.
Don't we all?
Alright, sounds like we're gonna meet another new character. By the time Eden and I joined the others in the main area, they were already beginning talks of how to mark off the outside and places they thought we were going to need to dig. There was also plenty of talk about the inside of the structure. 3 of them were up on the steps shining a light down the inside.
That is a hell of a long staircase down.
Well, we knew the bulk of it would be underground, so that's not shocking.
The path is unobstructed as far as I can see, but I still want to take some scans before we venture too far inside.
We'll get that set up soon. And overhead was a small round machine, a drone that was taking pictures as someone shouted for everyone to stand away from the area they were photographing. Oh, hello. There's a new boy. I wish I'd had one of those the other day when I was trying to get up that rock face to see this area from above.
You tried to scale the rock face? I was checking around there earlier. I didn't see a solid path up anywhere. Oh hey! Morgan, this is Finch. Finch, Morgan. Great to meet you finally. I feel like I already know you after spending the last few days poring over your reports.
It's nice to meet you too. And you're right, there isn't one. A way up, I mean. I tried to teleport myself up. I hadn't been planning to mention it, but it slipped out.
It's so strange to hear you talk about something like that so casually.
Don't be too impressed. I almost fell to my death when I didn't quite hit the target area and instead fell off the edge. Luckily, there was a ledge right underneath me to stop my fall.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I guess being an Esper can't solve everything.
If only.
I'm surprised you didn't take a peek inside the structure with that Psi of yours. Or did you?
He motioned Eden and I to the steps where the others were congregating and talking. I was tempted at one point, but I don't know how I'd record that since there wouldn't be any proof to back up my claims. I can't take images of what I see with my Psi.
You could draw it out, I guess.
I could, but I was hesitant to include something that didn't have stronger backing than a drawing. At least with the rest of my drawings, there are photographs to go with them. But there was another reason I was hesitant to try looking inside with my sphere.
Sphere?
Oh! It's just a Psi principle. Basically, my sphere of clairvoyant awareness?
So why didn't you?
Now that we were closer, the others were listening as well. I was a little self-conscious talking about my Psi where everyone could hear, but I suppose there was nothing for it. It was reality now. I couldn't, and didn't want to, hide it. I know this is Senecan, but I also heard about the Arayan labyrinth reacting to Psi, so I was a little cautious about poking around underground with my psychic ability before knowing what I might come into contact with.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I hope you two aren't trying to talk Morgan into doing something ridiculous.
We're asking questions. No one is convincing anyone of anything.
Senecans don't tend to build in areas where the labyrinth is, but it's good to confirm first.
I didn't even think about that. It was probably wise to hold back. You're that cautious with your Psi, but you still tried to teleport to the top of that hill?
You did what now?
Apparently almost broke her neck in the process.
I never said I almost broke my neck.
You said you fell off the edge.
Vireo just shook his head in disbelief. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
How exactly did you get back down anyway?
Lance found me clinging to that ledge. I pointed to where I'd fallen that day. And had me jump down. He caught me. I didn't need to look to know the rest were trying very hard not to laugh. Yes, I know. Dumb. In my defense, I've teleported successfully 3 times, over much longer distances.
It's a wonder you're still in one piece.
I won't deny that at all. And here I was thinking your telekinesis would come in handy when we get to work on this place. I'm much better at doing that than I am at teleporting. The thought of using it for work, instead of something like self-defense or fighting, it stirred an unfamiliar, almost giddy sensation. A blend of relief and, in a way, normalcy. Being able to view it as just another skill instead of a means to fight other people who might want to harm me. I liked that. A whole lot. After that discussion, there were more pictures and setting up some basic imaging equipment to look down the stairs. But Vireo said they'd need to send a robot down to look regardless, and that would take some time to set up. Eden and I remained on photograph everything duty, which suited me fine. It was interesting, and he continued to show me how to do it well. Finch helped us a bit too. I was happy to get a chance to talk to him. He was funny, gregarious, playful, and very enjoyable to be around. I liked him a lot. I liked all of them. Nice.
I've been there a few times, mostly to digs, also to visit.
Same here.
Just in the Twilight region, right?
To the edge of night, as we say, which means far enough in to see the stars, but not across the sea.
Stars, huh? I mean, I know what they're like since I've seen images, but it's hard to imagine that in person. I used to dream about them as a child, even though I've never seen them. When I came here, I remember thinking the sky felt so big. Imagining it dark and full of stars.
It's beautiful. Maybe we can take you there sometime. I mean, if you want. You and Lance. Both of you. If you want. It's worth seeing if you stick around.
To be honest, it always fascinated me how astronomy impacted ancient cultures. They put so much emphasis on star placement.
Well, it's natural they'd notice the stars have a pattern to their movements.
But they build entire structures according to the alignment of the stars and celestial bodies. It's fascinating.
Do you ever feel like we've lost something? With all this technology, advancement? Like we lose a sense of wonder about the world when it's lost behind all the tech. The stars no longer hold the same significance. We know what they are. We've walked among them. We're not to the point of the Arrayans yet, but can you imagine holding that kind of power? To stop a world from turning? Even with our limited technology, we do things the Senecan people would have no way of understanding. Things that would be like magic to them.
You and I do what we do so we won't ever lose respect for this, right? For the things that make us human. Our roots are all the same, so we do this to hold on to them. Whether it's Senecans here on Arcalis or the ancient peoples of Earth.
That's even true for those of us who aren't technically human.
You are humans. It's right there in the name. Homo novus. Neo-human. Come on.
Yeah, that's why some still call us androids. But you're right, of course. Even for neo-humans, our roots are tied up in the same history. That's why I still want to know more about it.
That's true. It's just something I think about sometimes. We believe we're so smart, that we know so much, and in the end we know so little. Seeing places like this makes me amazed to see how far we've come.
And all the more determined to never forget our origins.
I'm very grateful you've all let me be a part of this.
No need to thank us.
If you didn't have the skills to help, you wouldn't be helping. You're here because you showed you can be useful. Though it sounds a little mean when you say it that way.
No, I understand. Don't worry. But being with them felt like it opened even more possibilities. Traveling to the night side. Crossing the sea. It wasn't like no one ever traveled to Delphine from the day side. It was less common these days with tensions between the Triad and Delphine rising again. But traveling through the wastes meant ignoring all of that. Being out here meant being able to ignore so much that was frustrating about the rest of society. It came with its own challenges and drawbacks, but it meant being free from so many other burdens. The night side. I murmured the words as I watched Eden, standing on a rock I was stabilizing with telekinesis, trying to photograph another feature in the small cave system. I want to see it, definitely. At some point, anyway. I suppose there's plenty of time for it.
Well, I think everyone from here should visit there at least once if they can. It's worth it.
Same. It's very worth the trip.
I'm not really from here, though. Eden hopped down from the rock, running through the pictures before looking at me again.
We've already accepted you, though. At least if that's what you want. I think Lance already knows that as well. We protect him. And we'll protect you, too. I mean, we can't speak for everyone.
But Virio would say the same thing. Especially knowing Lance would want it.
He's an important person to us. To everyone.
I never thought I'd see him, find someone. But it's not a bad thing to know he's not out here alone anymore.
My cheeks warmed when he said that, and I looked away. Are we that obvious?
Oh man, if the two of you could actually see how you look at each other. Veer wouldn't stop talking about it after we left last time.
He also said you have strange taste in men.
This is true. I think I have excellent taste in men.
Well, with Lance, I'm sure it could be both.
Come on, we've been working a while. They're probably going to call it quits for the day soon so we can set up our camp.
You're staying out here?
It's what we're used to, and there's nowhere else. Not usually.
It sounds fun.
I'd invite you to stay, but as I recall, Lance wants you home in time for dinner.
I remember.
We can drive you back.
I'll walk.
It's not a problem to drive you. We can take one of our ATVs.
Well, it would be faster, but last time Lance had come to meet me. He might already be on his way. I could send him a quick message, but I didn't want to interrupt him if he was working. Besides, then he'd probably feel obligated to meet me halfway, even if he wasn't already planning it. He's definitely gonna come and meet you. So let's just stick with the plan. We'll walk. It's fine. I appreciate the offer, but I'll walk. It's not that long a walk, but thank you.
Suit yourself. Would have been a fun ride.
Maybe next time.
Hey, I'll come pick you up in the morning instead. How's that? I mean, if you want to help again.
Of course I do.
I thought so. I'll see you then.
I realized once I was on the way back that I was exhausted, but the good kind of exhausted. I wasn't surprised when less than 10 minutes into my walk I saw a familiar figure on his way to meet me. Yup. As expected. We met a little more than halfway home. Lance took my hand and held it the entire way back, lacing our fingers together without a word as we walked. I protested that my hands were filthy, but he said he didn't care and we could just wash up when we got back to the house. Dong. My face warmed pleasantly and we walked the entire way home like that as I told him about my day.
I'm glad to hear it went well.
It's a lot different when you have proper equipment to do everything. It was a great experience. They didn't rule out the possibility of my using my Psi to help some too.
Oh? I hope they didn't ask about teleportation.
Hilarious. And no, they did not. They were mostly talking about telekinesis and maybe a bit of clairvoyance once we confirm whether there are any Arayan areas nearby.
Well, that sounds safe enough. But there aren't any Arayan ruins this close to Avalon.
I suppose that's good to know. We may still confirm it ourselves, though.
I suppose scientists always prefer to confirm everything with their own eyes.
We do usually prefer that.
Dinner is ready, but I'm sure you want to clean up first.
I glanced down at my clothes. I guess I am a bit dusty.
It's a concern out here.
Then I'll shower first?
Alright, I'll wait for you.
Thanks. So what did you do today while I was out?
Just worked on the new sculpture. There was a lot of welding of the framework together. With this sort of kinetic sculpture, the most troublesome part is all the small blades. They have to be put together according to very specific measurements, then the pieces fit together. Then you attach them one by one.
I remember the sketches. And the clay model you made. It looks like it's going to be amazing. How many individual blades are there?
245.
That sounds... time-consuming.
Well, it is. But it's fun. And it's especially fun to see it come together and move for the first time.
I'll never get over how talented you are. But I'm glad it sounds like you had a good day.
It sounds like you had one as well.
I did. A very good day. Lance took my hand, giving me an inquisitive and serious look.
Morgan, are you... happy here? I know it's an isolated area, and it's just the two of us, but I was hoping... Listening to you talk about today, you seemed excited, so I thought...
Always affectionate. Yes. Yes, I am. Very happy. He looked so relieved when I said that without hesitation, and it occurred to me that maybe all this time he'd somehow been expecting me to suddenly ask to go back, or confess I hated it here. I moved closer to him, and one of his hands lifted to my cheek. Yes. Ooh, boy. These two. No wonder everyone's like, oh yeah, they in love, though. Like, look at the way they're looking at each other. There was a moment, a split second of indecision that hung between us. That gentle tension that had been hovering in the air the last few days broke. Yes! Finally! Woohoo! Oh, it finally happened. I'm so happy. Lance leaned in and, a little breathless and uncertain, pressed a kiss to my lips. I shut my eyes and leaned against him, hands strained to his chest as I gave myself entirely over to the sweet sensation of his lips against mine. The kiss was brief. He pulled away, meeting my eyes. The expression on his face was so soft, and, oddly, almost surprised. His eyes went far away as if remembering something he'd forgotten. Then realization crossed his features as he cupped my face and leaned in to kiss me again. The second kiss had an intensity the first one had lacked. Insistent, exploring, tasting. Lips moving soft against mine, parting only once for a rapid breath. His tongue sought entry, colliding with mine with tentative curiosity. My hands, almost of their own accord, moved to his nape, threading through the back of his hair. A low murmur sounded in his throat and sent a pleasant and fluttery ripple through me. We finally parted, breathless, still leaning our heads together.
Was that... okay?
Yes, that was quite okay. I leaned up to brush another soft kiss to his lips. He shut his eyes, a quiet breath escaping him. Resting my head against his shoulder, I smiled. His arms went around me.
I keep worrying I'm pushing too hard or moving too fast.
I would tell you if you were, but you're not. The speed is perfect. He rested his cheek against the top of my head.
Good.
I thought he'd say something more, but he didn't. After a moment, he pulled away to look down at me and then kissed me again, almost as if he wanted to prove he could. We curled on the sofa for a long time, lying against one another, sharing occasional kisses and getting used to this new development. I love it! It had already been a good day, and by the time we reluctantly went to bed, I was thinking it was the best day I'd had in a long time. A very long time. And I was happy.